Oh, snaps. What up, party peoples? Bobo here. And we're talking about She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Episode 3. Yeah, thank y'all for joining me for another live stream. And I don't know if you can tell, I'm getting my Halloween digs ready here. I got my little diorama set up over there. I'm going to do a new intro video and show you all that and put that on the channel at some point. But yeah, so it's looking a little creepier around here. Changed some stuff up, but I still got it Hulk themed. She-Hulk theme in the back there. Sorry, I pointed to the wrong side. But thank you guys for joining me. We're going to do like last time. We're doing this until the series ends. Discuss episode 3 of the She-Hulk that just released this morning, or late last night, whichever you want to refer to it. And as it's been so far, I got my boy Anshul joining me. Anshul, what's up, man?
What up, Bobo? Yeah, like you, I got my Siskel and Ebert vibe going back here. I got my Siskel and Eberts going on. So it's good to be back on this Thursday with you and your, what do you call your peoples, your subscribers? Do you call them the BrassReel bros?
BrassReelers?
The BrassReelers? I like that. I like that. It's good to be on with you and the BrassReelers again here on Thursday.
Yeah, dude. Thank you.
Talking some She-Hulk.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it was a interesting start on this series, and now I got to tell you, dude, I'm really kind of happy with it. It's becoming like I'm really excited for next week. How are you feeling so far?
Listen,
compared to episode 1?
So I'm a big Hulk fan, right? I repressed rage as a child, so the Hulk really speaks to me. I was a huge She-Hulk fan. You know, I love the character. I love the fourth wall. I love all that. And so going to the show with high expectations, I gotta say, it's pretty mid, man. I feel the show's pretty mid. Now, I know we're going to talk a lot about it. These episodes are quick, lightning quick. If you don't count the intro, don't count the post-credits scene, which is real brief, and don't count the credits, it's 25 minutes of actual storytelling. So it's fine for what it is, but you know, I'm not feeling too way about the show one way or the other.
So you're not like hating it, but you're not blown away by it either. You're just
everything is fine. You know, the jokes are fine. They're not hilarious. They maybe make me crack a smile here or there. That's about it. The story is fine. The acting, I'll say, the acting is fine. I wonder sometimes, we probably get this with a lot of the guest cameos, because this show loves its guest cameos. They love to throw in the cameos, you know?
Well, they even acknowledged that fourth wall-ish, you know, at one point. She's like, don't worry, this show's not going to be just full of cameos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah. And I think, I don't think it's the actress's fault, but I think the guest stars often outshine the main star.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. But at the same time, they even acknowledge that. Like, she's like, don't forget whose show you're watching.
Yep.
When she breaks that fourth wall and says that. And, you know, which leads me to my first little thing about this one. It's like, I understand that they're taking this from the way that she actually broke the fourth wall. They're adapting that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to make sure that it's not fully just going to be doing this the whole time like Daredevil. Like, I know that they definitely Deadpool. I know that they definitely are doing it more in this episode than they did the last 2 episodes. Like the way she really like takes a moment, and you're like, oh, all right. I liked it when it was just quippy little one lines, real quick. Oh, and then she's back in it. This episode, she had a couple of moments where she really like, it was like 30, 45 seconds of her like breaking the fourth wall. You know what I'm saying? And I just don't want them to go so far with it to where it's going to be like we're going to have like a whole scene where she starts telling a whole story to the fourth wall. And next thing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you know what this show has made me realize, or not even made me realize, it's reinforced a belief of mine, Bobo, is we hear those fans all the time that cry about stuff. Oh my God, it's not like the comics. You know, Spider-Boy. It's Spider-Boy. Tony Stark doesn't get... Spider-Man makes his own suit in the comics. Tony Stark doesn't give him a suit. Stupid. You know who you are. You know, those fans out there, you know who you are. Stop it. It's embarrassing. You're an adult. Act like it. Okay? This show is pretty much almost exactly like comics. Slight tweaks to the origin story that were needed, right? Especially if you're going to tell it real briefly. But other than that, it's exactly like the comics. And I don't think it's any better for it. And I almost wonder if these writers aren't being held back a little bit because they're trying to be too much like the comics. And have they been given some creative freedom to switch it up, maybe we get a better product. What do you think about that?
Well, no, it's funny you say that because I feel like this show, it feels almost the most like, when I say comic booky, I don't mean like the way Doctor Strange is more of a comic book style of a story compared to even the first Doctor, like Doctor Strange 2 compared to Doctor Strange 1 is way more comic book storytelling wise. I'm talking about this show is more comic booky in the sense that like it has that feeling that I felt as a kid when I was reading the comics in hand. Like it somehow or another was able to capture that vibe of that Stan Lee feel emotion. I don't know, that like, hey, Excelsior. Like it has that feeling to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, too
Um,
bad we couldn't get Stan to do some narration for this, huh?
boy,
R.I.P. Stan.
and you know it's so funny too because it's like we've gotten so much Marvel content now just in the short amount of time ago that since he died,
Mhm.
and we've got so much stuff without him. But it used to be such a like, when is the cameo? When is the cameo? It
Yeah,
was like it was
yeah.
part of your enjoyment of the Marvel films, and obviously you can't do it anymore after he's dead. But it's just amazing how much that was sort of part of the formula
Yeah.
of enjoying a Marvel movie or a Marvel project. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, it
even
was.
even the Indian and non MCU stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, he's still the single best part of any Kevin Smith movie ever. You know?
uh, Take it easy. Don't get me wrong. There's a spot where Kevin lost it, in my opinion. Well, it lost me, but it's far even up to Clerks too, man. I loved it. I loved all
That's
that stuff.
well, that's what happens when you encounter a con artist. They have you for a little while, and then when you get over the con, they don't have you. You know,
That you know you have your whole thing on that the He-Man.
he's a
deal.
grifter. People, Kevin Smith is a grifter.
That's on another topic. But going back to the lighthearted vibe of this, with her being on the news and them asking her all these questions, and she's like, "I didn't make up that name," and he's like, "Okay, great, She-Hulk," and you know, it's just like he's totally ignoring her.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're trying to go somewhere with that, but then to me, this worked for me. I don't know why.
the
The whole
twerking
Megan the
scene?
Stallion, just the whole part of her being in it and them kind of using her throughout the entire episode, kind of, and then the shapeshifter thing, and I don't know, the fact that she was in the courtroom and she was like, like I don't know, it for some reason I found myself really enjoying that, and I actually watched the whole episode twice because when I watched the episode, then while I was doing some work, I just put the whole series back on again because they are so short, and it's, you know what I mean. It was like an hour and 20 minutes maybe of watching some stuff. It wasn't even that long of watching all 3 episodes. So, anyways, I don't know, man. That Megan the Stallion thing kind of worked for me, and they really are going lighthearted. To me, the question is, are they ever going to jump and switch gears into a serious route towards the end of the show, or is it going to stay lighthearted till the bitter end? Because Miss Marvel got serious and it got emotional.
You know, the celebrity cameos, that's a double-edged sword. You got to be careful when you're doing that as a writer. You know, it can work, but you can definitely miss the mark with it. And if you overuse it, it can also cause the audience to roll their eyes. Oh, here comes another celebrity cameo. It takes away from the story, and to me, I always feel personally like a storyteller doesn't have faith in the story they're telling if they have to rely on too many cameos. You know, if you have to be clever too much with your audience, then there's a problem with your writing. If you're relying on just cleverness out of external factors like cameos. In my
Well, see what I'm learning about while watching this third episode now, and I will definitely be pretty sure this is what the show is going to be after the fourth episode if it continues in this tone throughout the fourth episode. This is a unraveling show in the sense that this show is meant to unravel some information about what the upcoming future of the MCU, with things that are actually going down, Wong being involved with the Abomination, She-Hulk, let's introduce her as a character. This is a show that's really designed to lay some groundwork for some people so you can understand why they're going to be in this major event coming up, or this major thing happening in another movie, whether it be Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that they actually are trying to, like, even while WandaVision was kind of setting up some future stuff with her being, you know, mad and the villain in Doctor Strange 2, ultimately what that show was doing was giving Vision and Wanda their day in the sun so we can attach ourselves to them like we had attached ourselves to Cap, to Tony, to Wanda, to Hulk. You know what I'm saying? Like they just show up and become an important part of the team. But when you hit in Civil War and then Infinity War, like it's like, oh, now they're married and they're across the sea together, and then then she has to kill him, and you know what I'm saying? Like their arc is very epic but very fast, and we didn't really dive into their characters. So that show was really just us embracing who Wanda and Vision were, what they were about together, why she's angry going forward. But this show, I think, is not doing that. This show is just like, we got to do a show so you can get to know She-Hulk, so you can get to know basically all these things, Abomination, maybe the idea of the Thunderbolts happening. And also, I'm curious, do you think that Titania and the Countess have something to do with each other?
I don't know, man. That Titanian cameo was so brief, and the costume was so
I think that she's going to be in the show towards the end, though.
Yeah, I would think she would have to come back, right? There's a couple of She-Hulk villains we haven't seen. Nikki Trask, who is supposed to be the main villain that causes her to transform in the first place because he orders a hit on Jen Walters in the comic book. I wonder if we're going to see him. I could understand them not.
Do you think that's what this stuff might be about?
Maybe. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, he was only, as far as I know, and somebody may have some different information than me, he was only used for the initial story. He wasn't used after that. So, Titania, though, is definitely one that's She-Hulk's signature villain. So that's one you have to explore more.
Yeah, right? I don't see them just brushing over her. And the girl playing her, which for some reason I'm drawing a blank on her name, but she's awesome. She was in The Good Place, that show. But she's really funny, really charming, beautiful, great actor. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I just don't see her tossing her in there for 4 seconds. You know.
Well, we did have a cameo by the Wrecking Crew. And the Wrecking Crew is something that will probably be a bigger part of the MCU, and I think they're setting that up, especially with Damage Inc., which we saw a little bit of Damage Inc. in Spider-Man Homecoming. So probably nerding out a little bit too much there for the audience. But
no. Who's Damage Inc.?
So Damage Inc. basically, it's a company that goes around and they profit off cleaning up areas after superhero fights.
Oh, so basically like Adrian Curry or Adrian Toon.
Yeah, but there's a lot of that, I think, and I didn't read too many of the Damage Inc. comics, so I'm trying to do this from memory off basically some information that I've heard about them from other YouTube sources. I believe the Wrecking Crew were originally they were bad guys for, I think, Thor, and it's basically a bunch of bad guys get powered weapons that are Asgardian powered, and it's like construction tools, right? And I think the Absorbing Man may have even been one of them. But originally they're Thor villains, and it was just a cheesy comic book thing where you got bad guys that use construction tools that are enchanted by magic. And they decided to do something with them later, and they're like, well, let's just make these guys like construction workers who profit off, superhero
one of those
fights.
Comics that was in there to just create stories within a gap of
it's meant to be like a slice of life. Like these guys, they're super villains now. This is what they're doing with their lives, and we'll make a comic book story out of it, and just kind of a slice of life. Not really an action adventure type comic.
So you think that these guys? I mean, obviously they were talking to somebody after they got away, and they're like, "That's not how this went down. That's not how this was planned." And, and obviously, she realized, "Oh, I'm She-Hulk. Let me get these guys." Do you think they're definitely going to go back to that?
I would think so. They set it up for something. If they don't, that's, again, poor storytelling, in my opinion. You plant a seed for something. And this is to speak of what you're talking about. This is a setup show, okay? This shows, to me, one of the flaws of Disney Plus's current way they roll out shows, okay? Because when you have a show, and it's your signature show, or at least for this time of year, it's a signature show that they're building around, right? Disney Plus is like, hey, stream She-Hulk, sign up for Disney Plus.
Sure.
Okay, that's your show that you're basically promoting the network around to try to get new subscribers, but you're only using it to set up other properties? That doesn't make sense to me. If Disney had a stronger lineup throughout the week, and they're like, hey, throughout the week we've got all these shows streaming, and then you use She-Hulk as a platform to jump other properties, I get it, but, if you're getting new subscribers based on She-Hulk, and the only reason this property really exists is to launch other properties down the road and it's not really that strong and it doesn't stand its own merit, then how are those subscribers going to stay with you? They're going to not have any motivation to continue to pay monthly.
Well, but I have to be honest with you, though, man. Like, I think as long as they have a show, whether it be Star Wars or Marvel, and I have to be honest with you on this one, too, for the Star Wars ones, I was out for a little while. I'll go in and out with my Disney Plus subscription. Like, for example, Hulu, I never cancel it.
Yeah.
Always use Hulu. It's Peacock, believe it or not, it's another one I always use. HBO Max, Prime, Netflix, all those. Those are Netflix, not so much anymore. But Prime, Hulu, HBO Max, and Peacock, and Tubi, because I love old school horror, and they just have all kinds of just random smut horror on there.
Yeah.
But those guys, I'll use those a bunch. But Disney Plus, man, I was out on Boba Fett, the show. I was out. Mandalorian season 2. It was good. Don't get me wrong. It was good, but it's just not like super. Like, I'm not thirsting. I'm not chomping at the bit. Like, oh man, I really want to see this. Boba Fett, I really was just kind of like out with. I was disappointed with Obi-Wan. Sorry, I just was. I enjoyed it, and they were very cool, awesome moments. But if it's not an MCU show and a Star Wars show that I'm really excited about, I'm not subscribing to Disney Plus.
And I'm glad you made that point. So I'm going to talk like a financial advisor, which is what I used to do in my past life, okay? This is a problem. Because you may say, hey, Disney can afford to do that because they got tons of cash. And they do. They have tons of retained earnings and they have cash on hand. But if your investors that invest in your company that make the majority of your market cap, they want those retained earnings for dividends. And if you start hemorrhaging money and you have a platform like this that becomes very expensive and it starts
and theme parks that are still up and running that aren't making the money they used
to. Exactly. Then your investors start to get pissed. And if your investors start to get pissed, heads start to roll, right? And so you got to be very careful. We already see it happening with HBO, Time Warner, Discovery, having to axe shows because of the financial stability of the company. And that's mainly to answer to the shareholders. I guarantee you they have cash, right?
You don't feel like that was Zaslav's, because the new guy in control of Discovery and Warner Brothers? I feel like, because he had made these statements a while back, that he wants to focus on the core characters that made DC instead of random heroes that try to get people to love. He didn't feel like that Superman and Batman and all them, their stories have been told properly or told enough. Mm-hmm. And I agree with him. I think we haven't seen enough good, solid Batman, Superman, Aquaman, Justice League type stuff to just go branching out for Billy Beetle and Batgirl and all this stuff. So I think that he was smart to axe a lot of those projects.
Yeah, but why is he smart to do that? It's because of the money, right? Because the money isn't abundant and plentiful, and they probably still have tons of money, but once again, they have to answer the investors. If Zaslav didn't have to answer the investors and he had enough money, he'd be like, all right, yeah, do Batgirl, do whatever, but let's mainly put our best people on the big properties and get those stories told. Well, now, as it is, he has to make a choice, right? So,
and I think that it directly relates to why they haven't been making money is because they've been so all over the place, and it's just like at least with Marvel, whether you like it or don't like where they've gotten to a point as far as style is concerned, you still at least know what to expect. Some you'll like more than others. But you're never like, what was that? Like, I remember when I saw Birds of Prey, I was just like, did this just happen? Yeah. You know, like, it was so just wrong.
Yeah.
You know, the way they treated the character of Cassandra, terrible, dude. She's one of my favorite characters in the comics when she's Batgirl. Like, one of the best characters ever. Mm-hmm. And the way they treated her in that movie was just, anyways. So I just don't think that they proved to be consistent. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that they understand that toning it down, reeling it back, focusing on these good characters will relate to dollars in the box office.
So this brings me to another point that this can tie back into She-Hulk, because it's very much a part of the conversation around She-Hulk. But it's also a part of the conversation of why Warner Brothers got in trouble in the first place, right? So let's talk about diversity as a whole. Now, diversity as a business practice, I think, has a lot of merit. Now, I've been part of two major corporations that were top 100 corporations that failed. And a big part of the reason was a lack of diversity up top. And the reason I say that is because there's a lack of thought, right? Mm-hmm. Most companies, and this was very true for Warner Brothers when the old studio heads were in charge, right? you find you get in this habit of hiring the same people from the same school with the same education. And in fact, little secret for all you guys who are looking to get your MBAs, the only reason the school matters is because of the Rolodex that comes with the school and the connections it can get you. As far as the education is concerned, you're all learning the same material. So your companies, your major corporations are all being run the same exact way from the same textbooks, and those people are also running the studios. And that became a very big problem with Warner Brothers because they just knew how to green light thinking with that business brain, and they didn't think about quality or content or their base of customers, and that caused a lack of quality
And
of the
Sony
product.
too.
Yeah, Sony the same way, right? Sony's the same exact way. So now we get to diversity is becoming a thing, but once again, I think diversity is being misused because now it's still those same people running the companies, but they're using diversity as a tagline to try to sell more movies and merchandise, and they're not really putting the creators in place to make that diversity pop because, once again, you probably need to change the diversity up top. You need different types of people from different walks of life with different ideas on how to run your company or release your movies in order to have true diversity and to really, truly feel like it's something new and special.
I think Feige has been trying to make sure that he's doing that with things. You know, if you look at all the last Marvel films and the projects, you know, like when he was making Miss Marvel, he based it as far as, all right, let's cast this properly. Let's not just in front of the camera, but behind the camera too. You know, let's get this the right way. And that's, I think, even though that's not my culture that I was raised in and I'm not from there, I appreciated the fact that they tried to make it more about that rather than let's just act like we know what that culture is and we'll write it. They said, no, let's give it to them. Same thing with Black Panther and Ryan Coogler and that whole thing. So I think with those, it does prove that he's getting that, they're getting that side of it, but I do think that they're also selling it and letting you know, oh, hey guys, and remember we're being diverse. Make sure you all know that we're, you know, it's like they're wanting to make sure, it's like patronizing in a weird way. Mm-hmm. So it's, you know, for example, I hate to bring it up this way, but you know, like I love, you know, plenty of things, people that do humanitarian things and things for good. That's great. I don't care. You know, it doesn't matter what color you are. If you're trying to help anyone, that's awesome. But it can't help but see when Jane Fonda comes on Jimmy Fallon last night and she's talking to the Roots and she looks over at Questlove and she compliments him on his documentary that he got his Oscar for. And it just felt a little over complimentary from Jane Fonda. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not talking trash about her or where her intentions were coming from.
Hand away, Jane. You're not talking trash about that traitor's right. Bitch, Bobby.
No, look. I just better watch my mouth on here. I'm not talking about Vietnam and all that stuff either. The past, because she's got a track record, her whole history of doing stuff.
Yo, like Jane, on this podcast, we love America. All right. Yeah, we love America.
Yeah,
screw you, Jay. No, I get you, man. I get you.
No, you'd be funny. You'd be funny to hear my Aunt Kim because she's very don't get her started on that. The point I'm trying to make is that when you try to make a big deal out of it, it comes off patronizing. You know what I mean?
You're exactly right, and that's been Disney's problem. Once again, it comes back to good writing, people. And so to go back, go full circle like a good comedian does. I really want you to watch Kevin Smith's He-Man, just because I think if I'm the type of person that if I have to feel pain, then I want everybody to feel that pain.
Well, you know, I had to watch Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift yesterday before I did my Fast and Furious stream last night, and that's the one that I don't really care for. And I was trying to go into it with open arms, and dude, if I don't like it, it's hard for me to keep it on.
You're going to have to do a lot of fast forwarding through that Kevin Smith He-Man. And we had this conversation privately. There was a way to do that story and have it well written and get across the themes you want to get. Unfortunately, Kevin Smith can't write. And so all he can do, and what a lot of writers are doing now, because they're being pushed to be diverse and maybe don't have time to think of proper stories, is, well, let's just hammer it over the head. Problem with that is the middle portion of ideology when it comes to diversity, who's the majority of the people, who are the people you should be marketing to, because that's where the majority of your money are going to come. They will come watch good stories, but they don't want to come to be lectured to.
Right. No, and again, that goes along with the sort of like making sure that you are aware that are doing this, and it's a big deal for us because we want you to see that it's a big deal for us that we're doing. You know, it's like 100%. Come on, guys.
So like we're Miss Marvel, and unfortunately I still haven't watched the show, partially because I was so scared because I didn't want to get the big conversation about the show that's controversial that shouldn't be. You know what they probably
did.
That
it was controversial at all, in my opinion.
No, but some people are trying to make it into controversy, right? And we know who those people are. They profit off that sort of thing.
Yeah, idiots.
Yeah. So partly the thing that they did well is if you just make the show about a different culture and you do it well and you don't try to be too heavy-handed with it, then people will watch it and be like, "Oh, that's actually kind of cool. I like that. I like that I'm seeing something different, right? And I enjoy the show."
And don't go into something like that and be like, I know what I want and this is how it's going to be. Go in with the learning mentality, being like, I'm going to do something about something, this culture. And even if I know a lot about it, I haven't been in this specific area where we're filming. And I haven't been in this specific mini culture within a culture. So let me ask them the way things would roll. Let me ask them how this would go down. What would they do? What's the kind of stuff that inspires them? You know what I mean? Rather than one of the things, and now we're really getting off topic, but Wes Craven, when he did The Serpent in the Rainbow, and that movie was about a lot of voodoo and stuff, and he went to all these Haitian tribes. He went literally overseas on vacation, and he'll tell you, or will told you, he's dead now, but in interviews that so much changed with the script and the way they were going to do things because of the way it was once they got there. Once they realized certain things, he was like, this has to be authentic. So what we thought the way we were going to do it, no, we're not doing it that way. We're doing this way because this is what we're seeing with our own eyes. And I appreciate that.
To tie it back to She-Hulk, this show has shown the right way and the wrong way to do it. There's a good and bad example, right? So we'll start with the bad first, because I was raised by...
Look at this real quick, though, because Andrew wanted to talk... Yeah, the in-game women...
What up, Andrew?
Yeah. We always refer to this moment where it's and again, I love powerful women. We're talking about a powerful show, and I love this show right now, She-Hulk, but I hate it when it feels patronizing. They're like, let's give them their moment. You know, it's like, no, just make them badass the whole time.
Hey, be careful, Andrew. You don't want to seem too right wing. You're an actor, right? You get blackballed. You got to lean into that. You got to be like, yeah, women, awesome. You know, we want you to keep getting those roles because you're super talented. So careful there, Andrew. But so She-Hulk has shown the good and the bad way to do it because we'll start with the bad. Because listen, I'm Asian, and that's the way Asian parents do it, right? You beat your kids first for the bad, and then you kind of just throw in a compliment after you get done beating their asses, right? So. The bad, right? The scene where she tells Bruce why she has to always deal with anger because she's a woman. Now, that scene was actually really well done, but unfortunately, MCU has this reputation for, after that scene in Endgame in particular, for being the MCU. And so a lot of people watch that scene, they roll their eyes, they're like, all right, here goes Marvel again, giving us a lecture about female
but
power.
I just didn't feel it, though, at that.
I know you like that scene. But let me get to the good first, and then we can probably kind of dive into this more. The good way to do it, and probably one of my favorite characters in the show, Bukowski, the other lawyer, right? He's an idiot, chauvinistic male. You don't have to turn around and look at the camera every 5 minutes and remind us, oh yeah, this Bukowski, he's an idiot guy. We know. The dialogue's good enough with him that we know this guy's an idiot, right?
Right here, he's talking about it, he's like,
yeah. How do you deal with this guy for that many years? Yeah. And so that's a creative way to get across your point and let us all know what Jen's been having to deal with, being this woman that's been around this idiot for the last however many years, without having to just come out and say it, right?
No,
that's good writing opposed to bad writing.
Yeah, it's called exposition.
Yeah.
You know, you explain it through the series of events and things happening. You know, I mean, to me, the king of exposition is Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Like, his movies, I've never seen, and now, again, I'm not trying to shy away from She-Hulk, but he literally, within 15 minutes, he can get you feeling like you've known these characters forever. Just watch the first 15 minutes of War of the Worlds, and you'll be like, damn.
I agree with you. So he can do it through storytelling, through visual medium,
right,
through a natural series of events that are linked together to where the audience's subconscious is able to string it together and get the story he's trying to tell. Where you have a director like, I don't know, I'll just pick a random name like Kevin Smith. Just out of the air, I'll pick Kevin Smith.
By the way, Kevin Smith, which hopefully one day, I like you. This is all Anshul.
Yeah, so Kevin has to have his characters vomit dialogue, the exposition, because he doesn't know how to tell a story. So therefore, let's just have a character go on a 30-minute rant unimpeded for no particular reason about the story I'm trying to tell because I don't know how to write it any other way. So, I just picked his name randomly, though. You don't want to work with Kevin Smith. You can work with better people than Kevin Smith.
It looks
Let's
like
not be afraid to piss off bad directors.
That's the thing. I like Kevin Smith. I grew up on some. I look on some of his later stuff has not been my bag, but like Red State, Tusk, I love those movies, and those aren't even comedies. But that's a whole other show. We'll do that on another show. Kevin,
we have to do that show.
Anshul just doesn't care for your stuff, but it's okay to disagree. That's the beauty about America, right?
Yeah, I don't like people who steal things from me. Kevin Smith is a grifter. He stole my early childhood memories when I realized he was phony. But let's go back to She-Hulk. Andrew has something else to say, by the way, if you want to chime into what Andrew has to say.
Yeah, well, he was saying that that part was cringe. They want to completely dismiss what Bruce has gone through with an obvious abusive father, watched his mother get killed, was considered dangerous by his own government, etc.
I never thought of that. That's a great point, Andrew. That's a great point.
Well, yeah, I mean, did they say that this character, Bruce's father, had passed away? And I'm genuinely asking, like, do we talk about that in the MCU?
This is it's tied to Edward Norton's Hulk, right? And
right. I'm saying, did they acknowledge that his parents were dead in that? And again, I can't remember.
Didn't he fight Edward? Didn't he fight his father in the first movie?
Not that.
Oh no.
That's thinking
Eric Bana. Yeah,
that was an Ang Lee's one. And so I'm just wondering if we've ever actually heard any backstory on Banner's parents in this.
I don't think we have. But he did definitely get chased by his own government, who wanted to use him as an experimental tool, right? He's definitely gone through his share of trauma. I don't even know what happened to Betty,
But also, Bruce is an intelligent person, and they even talk about the way he's able to move forward and even forgive Blonsky and make it to seem where you actually believe this. She's on her side. Like, look, I buy it. And look, how about Blonsky and his soulmates right there? That's hilarious, huh?
Well, once again, and this is no knock on Tatiana Maslany, who I think is giving a great performance with the material she's given, but it's another guest star who outshines the main character.
Right. No, I mean, again, you're right with that, but I think that I'm hoping that by episode 9 we're going to see what's going to really go on with her, because obviously, like you said, upstaging it, we see Abomination right here, but he's like smart Abomination now, so that's kind of interesting that there's a smart Hulk and a smart Abomination. And the fact that Bruce is forgiven him, and they explain that whole thing again, and now with Wong saying that he needed to do this whole thing, that was the one part of this episode I was kind of like, yeah, I went a little too fast for me on that one. The fact that Wong is he just shows up. And that's fine, him just showing up, because that's what him and Doctor Strange do. But the fact that he explains this whole Kumite situation and he needed, to me, that was a little weak. So it's like that's why we saw Abomination in Shang-Chi? That's it?
Okay, so a couple things. One day we got to do a Bloodsport video, because the real life story of that guy, and you want to talk about real con artists?
Dude, now that's wild. I'll talk shit about him all day long.
Yeah, and Andrew's
I'll wear my Bloodsport shirt for that.
Yeah. So, first of all, why is Wong always better in his cameo roles than he is in Doctor Strange? Like, I liked him in the last Doctor Strange movie, but he's always G'd up in his cameos. He's doing it great in his cameos. He's killing it. So
I agree. And his name's Wong in real life.
Yeah. And let's talk about the real Abomination. The real Abomination is that She-Hulk CGI. How bad does she look in her business suit?
I agree, man. It's not. Now, look, we talked about this last time about how these guys are overworked in the industry, and especially at Disney, and I get that. I'm not putting hate on the guys that are doing it. I think that they're not being given enough time, and Disney's just like, all right, give it to us. And they're like, well, all right, here. So I'm really just, they should have waited longer. Look, they've rearranged scheduling stuff before. They've said, this movie was supposed to come out, something happened, so they'll rearrange some stuff. If they would have just made this come out a little later and put something else, another Disney Plus show that's going to be coming out or something, you know what I mean? Like, then just by the time the CG looks good, then that's just so much more believable. But there are moments, man, when she's walking around, like, this is not so bad. Like, this part right here is fine when she's talking there, but like when she's walking throughout the office, it's bad.
Yep. Yeah, you can really tell screen that she's moving at a different frame rate than the actual
than everybody
scene.
else.
Yeah,
nothing. Yeah, your eyes are not lying to you when you're watching it.
Yeah,
it's like see. But I do like her character as far as the way that she's kind of acting and handling everything. I just still go back to that first episode. I wish she would have had a longer of a freak out, like a whole episode of freaking out about her new situation. But I don't mind her getting involved now and just embracing it. And, you know, again, she's like, I'm pushing through this. But when Wong jumped in every time, it was just the music. Did you notice that? And I don't know what happened. I had a picture of him doing the circle. I guess I accidentally deleted it. But when Wong's doing, every time he comes to the portal, it's like, you know, it's like it's a MCU Marvel music cue. And by the third time he did it, dude, it started reminding me of like the goats in Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm like, how many times are y'all going to do this? And I get they're trying to be funny with it, but it just it's like, all right, this music is just funny to me.
The goats I hated on when they first came on, but by the end I was like, all right, I'm digging this. This is funny. The goats to me was one of those rare jokes where it sucks at first, but the more you do it, the funnier it got. That's how it was for me. But I guess for you it was different.
Well, to me it was just I just would have I would have been fine with those goats being all the way in the film throughout, and you still having goat jokes throughout with that scream. It's just the fact that how many times it was done. I don't mind you keep going back to the joke, but I was like, by the time like 40, I was just like, they're really doing this. And it's just like, you're like, are they really doing the ghost sound again? And then it's just, it's like Taika's like, I know they're going to be asking that question, so I'm going to throw it in one more time right here.
Yeah. I almost think that's kind of what one of the things the humor of She-Hulk is missing, because the humor to me is, like I said, it's very mid. It's very average. I think they're missing stuff like little nuances like callbacks. Callbacks is an important comedic tool, right? I'm a guy that has a famous comedian for a brother, so I get to listen to him talk shop all the time. Like, you know, a lot of times when we spend time together, he's so busy that we'll do lunch, and us doing lunch is him with his people working on his sets or his writing. And that's the only time we get to spend together. So I get to pick up a lot about comedy from him. And yeah, just little touches like that. I think my main part about the series, the thing I've kept coming back to, is the writing is average. It needs to be tighter. It needs to be better. And if the writing was better, I would like this series better.
Just see, for me, the writing is good. It's just not a whole lot's really going down except for when the cameos happen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It does feel very much just like a day in the life of Jennifer Walters. And so, like, for me, that's not bugging me, but I don't want the whole show to be like this. Like, if it's by the time episode 5 and nothing really, like, legit has gone down, which I think that they're going to lead to something, obviously. They're going to. It's an MCU show. Then, you know, then I'll be upset if nothing's gone down. But like I said, I think they will. This is one question I want to get to before we, you know, because our time, we're not quite there, but it's creeping up on us. So obviously setting up Abomination. Now we know that, okay, cool. Emil Blonsky's good. We don't know for 100% sure that he's good, but we think Emil Blonsky's all right. You know, we've got Wong busting up in there, you know, so we know that he's a part of some stuff. And for some reason, they just want to make him and She-Hulk be associated again, setting it up for her to know other people in the universe so she can be a part of the team when it's time. But are we going to see this?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. We definitely will, for sure.
Because this was in the first teaser trailer.
Yeah, I was about to say it's in the teaser trailer, and they got to have the superhero moment. Yeah, Alec McBeal's superhero show is only fine if you do the superhero part, and we haven't really gotten that. I mean, that fight with the Wrecking Crew. Which, by the way, this goes back to the budget. Like, the fight scenes are very, very whack because they don't have the budget. So it's all close-up shots, and it's people getting tossed around, and you don't really see her move or do anything. You know, that punch in episode 1, I always go back to that, where she looked like she just threw her arm out straight, and then we see the camera zoom into it, and then we see Tatiana go flying, right?
Yeah, there was no like this. It was just like, she was more like Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It was terrible. And this fight scene with the Wrecking Crew was also pretty whack. Let's be honest. It wasn't that good.
Again, it kind of felt like the way the fights felt in Batman Begins. You know, no one quite hadn't figured out the action yet.
Yeah.
Now, who do you think I think it's going to be her and Titania really going down when this happens. But also, I think that we're going to get old boy helping her out in a fight.
I think with the way his cameo is going to work, and you're right, it's Titania. I don't know why I keep saying Tatiana, but I think it's just going to be a quick cameo. I don't think he's really going to have a lot of action. Maybe at the end they all come in, but that would be so expensive. And this show clearly has an issue with budget, that
Well, so what about this?
yeah, I mean, we definitely see them meeting on the rooftop, and maybe they'll go beat up some bad guys, like some street level bad guys. I would love to see it. I would love to be wrong with that. I would love there to be a big set action piece with him, with Wong, with Abomination, with Titania. I just don't know if they're gonna have the money for it.
Now, do you notice anything about this though?
Well, we got a little bit yellow in that suit, correct?
Yeah, that's a gold and yellow helmet, and then there's yellow on the tabs there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look right here, this is actually a shot of on-set stuff right here of him in the middle of that shot. You see it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we got the yellow and red suit. Nice callback.
So yeah, that's going to be cool. But the yellow and red suit came first, and I think there's probably been some arcs where he's gone back to it. But why do you think their explanation is going to be for this? Is it just because it's the deciphering the MCU Daredevil from the Netflix Daredevil, which is technically the same thing now because it's even on Disney Plus? You can that show's on Disney Plus now. All of it is. The Defenders, Jessica Jones, all of it is.
If I follow the themes that resonated throughout these last 3 shows with the way it's being written, I would say they will explain it with a joke and not actually explain it. They will have a throwaway joke to explain it, and that's the way. That's just gonna be your explanation for it. That's the way it feels to me. That's the way these writers write.
Well, it's funny you say that because one of the comments we got here from Andrew, it's saying that the writers have actually admitted that they don't know how to write courtroom scenes, and this show was pitched as an Ally McBeal, but with a superhero.
Yeah, you could tell. I watched that courtroom scene, and I was like, I don't think that's the way it goes. I've been to court a couple times, unfortunately, but not an extended court battle, and but even then I was like, I don't think that's how it goes.
Yeah, judges are never really that charismatic. It's never, it's very much more like people that anybody in the courtroom for the most part doesn't want to be there, including the lawyers, including the, you know what I mean? Like they're just like this shit. So yeah, the fact that it seems so, like at the end of like Mr. Deeds, or excuse me, Big Daddy, when they're in the courtroom, everybody shows up. It's like there ain't no courtroom on the planet that's ever been like that. But for me, it works. And one of the things about the MCU that, okay, this is a fine line that the MCU has walked. Like with the Batman movies. Oh, I need to take this down. Sorry. With the Dark Knight, especially the Dark Knight trilogy. It does the perfect fine line of making me want to completely disconnect, but it feels a little bit more impactful because of the level of reality that it connects to. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody with superpowers or anything like that. It's just, and if they do, it's because they're breathing in a gas, and they're basically taking steroids like Bane. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's nobody that has like laser vision or stuff like that. But those getting me completely disconnected from reality while tap me into reality, that was cool. The MCU, even with Iron Man, while it was still like, man, I kind of want to believe that this could really exist, it still was very quickly tapping into powers.
Moon Knight's a great example. Moon Knight's supposed to be a street level guy, right? But they went the whole Egyptian god Pharaoh thing.
Well, and again, they're just the whole universe with Thor coming into play. And then it's just like, oh, there's powers, Mm-hmm. So with the MCU, I'm fine with them giving me that disconnection. You know what I'm saying? I don't mind. It's like, all right, I want this to be kind of a fun courtroom drama, but let's face it, I'm not watching this show for the courtroom scenes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I understand why it's like the Ally McBeal rather than like West Wing or The Practice, where it's actually more legit to what real life court or real life, politics are like. Even then, those are still theatrical.
I mean, I think it's obvious that the demographic they're going for here is women. That's the crowd they're trying to cater to.
Because the music and everything, and who's that guy? That stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know. I never watched Ally McBeal. But if memory serves me correctly, just from the little bits I gleaned through commercials or whatever, their court scenes, they leaned into that. They made them really outrageous, right? Really, really catered to, like, I think part of the show was she always had these, like, fantasies in her head that she would live out that they would show on screen. And so they'd really lean into stuff like that and cater towards women. These courtroom scenes are just kind of, bland, in my opinion, compared to that.
Yeah, and when I actually liked it when they were going back and forth between her and Emil doing theirs, and then the other courtroom scene with what's his name? I can't remember, the chauvinist.
Bukowski.
Yeah. Like, I like that going back and forth. That was kind of cool. That was fine, and that had that Ally McBeal vibe for me. But ultimately, like I said, we're not watching this show to be like, you know what, that She-Hulk had a really awesome courtroom scene where it was compelling, and it's like, no, we're watching the MC show about She-Hulk, and you know what I mean. Like, for me, I'm fine with the way the courtroom scenes are. They don't.
Yeah, I think
don't,
basically what you're saying is eventually we need to have stakes in here. We need to have some real stakes.
I want something to go down,
drama.
and I want it to be to where she doesn't feel annoyed to be She-Hulk. Yeah, I wanted her to be like, you know what, it's time for me to step up and do my jam. You know, which is why it'll happen, because she's going to put on the suit. You know what I mean? So she's going to decide in her head at some point, all right, I want to be an Avenger.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see how long they keep her, because once again, the CGI is an issue. So I would think, just from a monetary perspective, that's probably a challenge. Like, I spent a lot of time bashing on these writers, but I do understand they present with unique challenges when writing a show like this. That's part of a property like Disney and all the edicts that come down, and you know, they probably would have wanted her to stay She-Hulk, but it's expensive to do that, and so it's probably hard to write that way, because Disney's probably like saying, "No, I mean, we can't afford that." So let's.
Well, and I don't mind her going back and forth a little bit, but she is She-Hulk a lot of the show. But I bet that they did all the action-y CG stuff first, like the first episode. When they're doing their action stuff together, that looks great. That looks fine. None of that bothers me. So I'm betting that they got all the stuff to where she's fighting and all that. I'm talking like when she's in the suit, like the epic stuff that we're really going to be like, okay, this is an MCU show now. I'm betting that they got all that stuff down first, and then they went in and did all of the stuff of her in her suits and her courtroom. They did that stuff second. I'm just betting. I don't know this, but I bet you so far that's the way it's seeming, because that initial episode, unless they just finish the show and then spend a little extra time on the pilot episode just so they could try to get you. You know what I mean?
That's a possibility as well.
Every company takes all kinds of different tactics for all kinds of different reasons, you know, in all different ways.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, it's easy to say because it's not our pocketbook, and once again, we're not answering those investors. But once again, to go back to an earlier point of yours, if you were going to have the shoddy CGI and it could be remedied with time, then I would have hoped that would have been an option, rather than rushing it out. Now, maybe that was an option. Maybe that's why we got what we got.
Like Cyberpunk. Oh, I don't know if you know that. Jeez, dude.
I've heard about it. I've never played it. Yeah, I'm not a huge gamer.
Good now. Now it's fine. 2.5 something years later, after they fixed a bunch of stuff and updated it multiple times and released it on the next gen console. You know what I mean? But like when it first came out, it was a disaster, and that's kind of what it was all because of investors. These investors were, and it was Warner Brothers releasing that game with CD Projekt Red, the game maker. And so Warner Brothers, with their investors and everybody, because they had Keanu Reeves attached to it, and he wanted to, you know, they wanted to sell that. And it just was a disaster, and they rushed it out because investors like, we need to show us our money.
Yeah, and hey, listen, from a guy that works on the other end, as an investor, if you sink in a ton of money for an investment, you have every right to at some point lose your patience and say, listen, I need to start seeing some return on this investment. I could be making money with this money elsewhere. I need to make money elsewhere. And I gave it to you in hopes that you would make me money, and you've been sitting on it. So I kind of understand where they're coming from sometimes.
And with Cyberpunk, it was one of those things. It's like, it was like, okay, like I'm cool with you guys taking your time, but it's been 8 years since you've announced this game, literally. So I see exactly what you're saying from the investor standpoint as well. So do you think that Hulk is going to be back in this show at all? Do you think he's going to be in the last episode as a cliffhanger, like on maybe a post credit scene?
They'll use him to set up something, but he's off planet. We know he's off planet.
That's
so
what I'm saying. But like, is she going to call him up again, or is he going to call her and be like, hey, sorry, we got cut off? Because remember, he's like, okay, you just hung up on me because he was going into warp speed.
I mean, honestly, when I think about it, the Hulk stuff was the weakest stuff of the show.
You know, I liked the Hulk stuff. I mean, Smart Hulk and Jen Walters. It's like what is it? You know, it's not really appealing to me. It doesn't there's nothing that grabs me. I don't know, man. I like them. They were talking about Tony and Cap a lot. It just felt like a hangout session for a second.
So I want you to compare the dynamic between Smart Hulk and She-Hulk to the dynamic, and I know you didn't like this show as much, but between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston. When they had their scenes together and it was just them, to me, that was the strongest part of that show, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. Owen, that's arguably one of Owen Wilson's best roles he's ever done.
I agree, 100%.
I did not dislike Loki at all. I'm just talking about in the ranking of the Marvel shows.
Sure, yeah.
But I definitely enjoyed it, and I love the setup that it put out there. I hope that we see a little bit more involving Daredevil in this show. I hope it's not just a glimpse. If it's a full episode of him trying to help her as Matt Murdock, and it ends up him doing something at the end as Daredevil or something like that, that's good enough for me. I just don't want him to see her for a minute and them talk about something or have a 10-minute fight or something, like a 5-minute fight. That's cool. But if I don't want to see a Flash.
Well, if you're correct, then we're seeing him just set Born Again, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Well, but again, he's a lawyer. So is he going to be a part of this team with them both supporting superheroes or involved with superhero cases? And will she, as Jennifer Walters, show up on Daredevil Reborn?
I doubt that. I doubt she'll be in there because to me that would take away. Daredevil Reborn is a dark, gritty story, man.
It needs to be. It better be. But again, it's not. They've already said it will lighten up a little bit compared to what we've seen on those last 3 things that was Daredevil Netflix.
And that's fine to me because although I loved all 3 seasons of Daredevil, that Jeff Loeb writing style with those superhero shows started to wear on me. Because once again, he has his crutch as a writer is let's lean on interpersonal drama. Whenever we want to keep people invested, from episode to episode, let's just ratchet up the interpersonal drama to the point where it almost becomes like a soap opera. I feel like I'm watching soap operas.
There were some times on there that it was like that, but also if you look back at even with Frank Miller's Man Without Fear and Kevin Smith's Daredevil Visionaries, which the Guardian Devil, I don't know if you liked that Kevin Smith run.
No,
it was about a lot of personal issues and stuff. Yeah. So
I liked it until Brian Michael Bendis did his run, and I was like, "Oh, this a real writer did Daredevil," and now I see the phony writer didn't do a good job of Daredevil. Yeah, and Brian Michael Bendis, by the way, I'm not the biggest fan of his because he writes everything like it's network TV. But his Daredevil story arc.
Daredevil is where he blew up for Marvel, and that's when they hired him for everything after he was doing Daredevil.
Yeah, and dude, I would hate to be a writer that follows Brian Michael Bendis because he will just destroy everything. And just leave the world in shambles for somebody else to pick up the pieces, and he'll walk away.
Yeah, you know who else was like that was Grant Morrison. Yeah. Grant Morrison loved with the X-Men. He is like, I'm just going to get up there and screw it all up.
But I like the changes he.
Oh, I did too. He made the X-Men the grittiest and the darkest and most mature that it had ever been up to that point.
So I feel like when Grant Morrison does it, he does it with a broader story in mind. Brian Michael Bendis does it just to shock people into going into the next issue.
Yeah, and Brian Michael Bendis would throw wacky. That's another thing I don't like. It's like when you take a property like X-Men, and then I can't remember what artist or what writer was doing this, but it may have been Bendis. I don't know. I don't remember him writing X-Men, but I
think he did.
Maybe it was him, but they just throw in all these characters to be random with it, like it's the Suicide Squad or something. Yeah. It's like, no, man, I want the X-Men to be cool. I don't want to have some goofy, whacked out mutant. It's just let's just make a whack character and call it a mutant. It's like, no, man, make these make it cool like Wolverine. Make it cool like Rogue, Cyclops. Those are cool characters. Anyways, now we're getting off.
No. You know what? You actually tied it right back in because I think my problem with She-Hulk right now is the way it's being written is it's written with that randomness of let's throw in shit to get the audience to say, wow, that's cool, rather than let's have it build towards a larger story arc.
Well, but I think that that's their initial tactic with this to try to get everybody seeming like, oh, if all these people are getting involved in this show as characters showing up as cameos, what is the big thing that's about to go down with this show? That's at least the way I'm feeling about it.
Yeah, and listen, maybe after they get to writing the whole story, I'll look back and say, oh, I was the one that was in the wrong. They just had the wool pulled over my eyes. I didn't see the bigger story they were crafting. But right now, it doesn't look like that. And another show that you need to watch that we need to talk about is House of Dragon.
Let's talk about
what our expectations were going into House of Dragon. most of us were pissed about season 8. We're very, very tepid when getting into House of Dragons. We were like, I ain't gonna watch another 8 seasons of people dying just for you to screw up the ending. Go F yourselves. I'm not watching this. All right, you know what? Nothing else is on. Football hasn't started. Let's give it a shot. And like a quarter of the way through House of Dragons, I was like, damn it! They got me again. Just when I thought it was out, they got me back in again.
That's what I thought. They pulled me back in.
Yeah.
Well, but also too, they're not going to greenlight something without it being awesome. Now, you said it's supposed to be just I'm saying being awesome from the get go. Now, it doesn't mean they won't ruin it down the road, but you also said that this is supposed to be only like 2 seasons with House of Dragons.
I think it originally was only going to be 1 season. They just greenlit season 2. There's a lot of time jumps that are going to happen. We're about to get in the first major we actually had a little bit of a time jump in episode 2, and we're about to have another major one. Episode 3, people are about to age up quick, but they may have extended to season 2. Now they are going to do like almost anthology style ish, where they will tell several stories throughout the history of Game of Thrones and Westeros.
So, dude, I'd be fine if they did like 2-season limited series here, 2 season here, 2 season here, 2 season of just different shows, but all in the Game of Thrones universe at different times. That'd be fine with me.
Yeah, and the point I'm trying to make is that show is written extremely well, and even to the point where when I do my on my channel, Who's the Master? Just a quick little plug there.
Nice.
When we do our post shows of House of Dragon, we spend a lot of time talking about how, man, this character is clearly a mirror version of X character from Game of Thrones, only they're not as good. But despite that, we still enjoy the show. You know, there's a lot of this character is like a poor man's Littlefinger, but despite the fact that they're a poor man's Littlefinger, I'm still enjoying the character, and I'm still rooting against him, and I still think he's vile, and I still want to see him get his comeuppance.
Right. That's the biggest thing, is just try as hard as you can not to directly compare it to something else, because at the end of the day, it's not the same thing.
Yeah, but this show's written so well that even though the comparisons are inevitable and they're being made, it still can't quell your excitement for the show and your enjoyment of the show.
Yeah, I mean that's the way I felt about Better Call Saul. You know, Better Call Saul is like by the end of it now, it's like arguably just as good as Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
really. I mean, but hey, look, I want to keep this short now because we're approaching an hour here, and I kind of want to keep that clock below the hour mark.
Okay.
I feel like people just tend to click on the video more when it doesn't say an hour on it.
You're missing out, peeps.
Yeah. So thanks for joining me, brother. And also, Who's the Master? Look for his channel, you guys.
That's right. Click on it. We'll have some good stuff on there. And
real quick though, so you're just giving this like a straight C, because this one was like much more of an A for me.
Yeah. We got a little different grading scale on Who's the Master. If it's 8 and above, it's got the glow. 6 to 7, that's still being workshop, what we want to call that. But in that, or 7 to 8, or 6 to 7, yeah. But in that 5 to 6 area, you know, that's when it's mid. We give it a mid, you know?
So this is a 5 to 6.
Yeah, listen, if you have 30 minutes to kill, watch it. But right now, there's nothing that I've seen at this moment that says it's appointment viewing for you.
Well, there we go. We still got 6 more episodes to go on it, so we'll see. But hey, we're going to talk about this next week again for episode 4, and I think you and me are going to try to do a House of Dragon pregame deal coming up this weekend.
Love it.
Well, hey,
thanks for joining us, Andrew. Hey, get that headshot up, Andrew. We need to get that. We need to get your beautiful mug when we put these questions up, so people casting agents can see it.
Pick.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, hey, Anshul, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, man. Peace. Bye. Guys, thank y'all so much again for joining me as well, and be looking for maybe the House of Dragon stream coming up soon, and we're also going to be doing this next week as well. I got some more reviews coming up too. It just got random things I'm working on. Also got the Halloween section set up back here, and I'm getting all my Halloween videos prepped for October. So I'm always going to be bringing stuff to you guys. But hey, thank y'all so much for real. Always love y'all with all my heart. Remember, if life gives you lemons, make some hot, fresh popcorns. Oh, yeah.